All right, so this is our new unit, linear relations. I know our last unit was linear equations. This is the connection between two variables together in an equation. So this is a two-variable equation, but the first thing I want to do is we're going to be linking this to graphing. So the very first part of this lesson is making sure we know our coordinate plane, we know what to do with it, and we know how to graph points. That's the most important part. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. All right. Okay, so I'm going to run through some of the parts that I have on the page here. Also, this is a coordinate plane. Sometimes it's been called a Cartesian plane, but I think most people know it as a coordinate plane. So you have your x-axis. So your x-axis is the horizontal. So horizontal runs left to right. And the nice thing about this is we just did a bunch of number lines in the inequalities. So think of your x-axis as your number line. It's the traditional one that we normally use. Negative numbers are on the left-hand side and positive numbers are on the right-hand side. The y-axis is a vertical line, and so that's up, down. So this right here is my y-axis. And you'll see most times that it's labeled with a y. Let me just slide over here for a second. So this is your x. It's indicating that your horizontal is your x-axis, just in case you forget, and your y-axis is the one that runs up and down. So again, positive numbers are above the x-axis, and negative numbers are below the x-axis. So those are some important things. But I think you guys probably know this, or you've done this before in elementary school. Okay, so the next part is the origin. Now the origin is this point right here, and that origin has a coordinate pair of 0, 0. And in a second I'll talk about coordinate pairs. Kind of looks like some eyes with a nose. But what it's saying is that this is where everything starts. It starts at 0x and 0y. So while we're here in a coordinate pair or an ordered pair, on the page I called them ordered pairs, but sometimes we will call them coordinate pairs. They're a pair of numbers that tell you, and it's always the x number first, then the y. It's kind of like in an atlas where, like, you know, Saskatoon is located in A2. So you go over to A2, or go over to A and then up to 2, and then somewhere in that square is your city of Saskatoon. So same sort of thing, it's like Battleship. So, but it always tells us, it's really important, the x comes first and then the y. So that's super important that you remember that. The next thing that's super important, everything's super important if you haven't noticed, is, if you notice, this cuts the coordinate plane into 4 sections. Okay? Those 4 sections each have a number, and they're called quadrants. So this is quadrant 1, and we use Roman numerals. It's okay if you just want to use the number 1. And we go in a counterclockwise direction, so we're going that way. So you'd think you'd go down here first, but you wouldn't. Quadrant 2 is actually backwards, counterclockwise. So this is quadrant 2. And then this one over here is quadrant 3. And again, I'm just using Roman numerals. I don't know, we always use them. I don't know why. You can just use regular numbers if you want, but I'm going to use, just because this is usually how you see it in different textbooks or on the internet, it's usually given in Roman numerals. So quadrant 1, or I, quadrant 2, which is II, quadrant 3, which is III, and quadrant 4, which is IV. So V is 5, take 1 away, that makes it 4. There's your lesson on Roman numerals today. This is actually part of the assignment, so it's important that you make sure you copy this down. This is super duper important. Okay, so let's talk about plotting points. Ooh, everything's getting caught up here. This is why I zoomed in, because it's just a little bit easier to see. So first thing you do is you always begin at the origin, and the origin is like where the x and y cross each other. So this point here, A, has an x value of positive 2 and a y value of positive 4. I find it helpful to put the x and y if I'm just starting, if this is where I'm just learning how to do it. So I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go to my x first. So x was positive 2. So I'm going to go to the right 2, and then y is 4. So then I'm going to travel 4 up. So this point here is point A. So that's what the coordinate pair tells me. The 2, 4 tells me I'm going to go over 2, and I'm going to go up 4. Okay, so now this one, again, it's always in the order x, y. So this time I'm going negative 4. So starting at the 0, I go negative 4. And then from here, I'm going to go up 3 to positive 3. So that's my point B. C, again, my x is 5, my y is negative 1. So I'm going to start at 0. Oh, I got to slide over for a second. Start at 0. I'm going to go all the way to 5. But now it's a negative 1, so I've got to go down 1. And you always want to pay attention to your increments. And when I talk about increments, these are what the ticks are worth. So sometimes this one's nice because it goes up by 1s, really straightforward. But if it went up by 2s, then this wouldn't be 5, right? Like, so you've got to make sure you're paying attention to where the ticks are. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. This one is 0 and 1. Okay, so I start at 0. Now this is telling me, because this is 0, it's telling me I don't go left or right. I stay at 0 and I go up 1. So this point is point D. Now if I asked what quadrant is point D in, it's actually not in a quadrant. It's located on the y-axis. Okay, so point A is in quadrant 1, point B is in quadrant 2, but point D is not in a quadrant because it's kind of right on the line, so we would say it's on the y-axis. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so point E is negative 6, so I start at 0, I go all the way over to negative 6, and then I go down to negative 5. So this point here is point E. So this is actually a question similar to what we're doing in the assignment, so make sure that you are paying attention and you feel comfortable with it. So this one again, this is x and y. So this one's telling me I'm going to go left to negative 1, but my y is 0. So I'm not going up or down, I'm staying right on that line. So this point here is F. Okay, now again, F is not in quadrant 2 and it's not in quadrant 3. F would be located on the x-axis. Okay, so if I asked what quadrant is F in, it's actually not in a quadrant, it is on the x-axis. All right, so this is always where it gets tricky, is when the numbers look the same and I don't pay close attention, because I'm guilty of that. So this one is negative 3 for the x, but positive 3 for the y. So I'm going to go over to negative 3, so I always start at 0 at my origin. I go to negative 3, and then I'm going to go up 3. So this point here is point G. But if you look at H, the x now is positive 3, and the y is negative 3. So start at the origin, I'm going to go over to positive 3, and then I'm going to go down to negative 3. So this is where H is. Very different locations, G and H. So that's something that when the numbers look really similar, just pay attention that you're slowing down and you're making, you're just paying attention which one's X, which one's Y. Because it's really easy to make a mistake, and it's not because you don't know how to do it, it might be because you're rushing. Okay, so that's page 1 of the notes. Oh, I'm gonna scroll up here, sorry. All right, so this was example 2, and we're going to write the ordered pair, or we're going to write the coordinate pair for each of these points. So we're actually doing it backwards to what we just did. Now I've given you the points, I want the coordinate pairs for it. Okay, so let's do A first. Okay, so I look at how far left or right of the origin. Well, it hasn't gone anywhere. It is on. The x hasn't moved left or right, it's still on 0. So this, the x hasn't moved, but the y has. The y, if it started here, it's now at 4, so we moved up 4. So my coordinate pair would be 0, 4. Those are the tough ones. B is probably going to be easier because we move 2 to the right. So my x is 2, and I've gone up to 3, so my y is a positive 3. Nice and easy. C, I've gone over to 6, so I always start at the origin, and I moved over 6 units here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can count them, or, I don't know, just look at the number 6. That's also an option. So my x is 6, and I look how far up I've gone. So I went 1, 2 up. So 6, 2 is that coordinate pair. Now D, I've traveled 8 units to the right, but I haven't gone up or down. I'm still sitting on that line. So I haven't traveled anywhere, so I'm going to call it 0. So that point is 8, 0. F. F is at 9. So it's at 9, and it is up at 5. Now, sometimes I like to run my finger along or run my pen along just to make sure that I'm actually at those points. So I run it right across. Because sometimes when it's really far away, sometimes the lines can get a little wonky, and we might say 9, 4. And although we know it's 9, 5, maybe it's a little bit off. So our last one is C. So C is at 6, or no, E, we're doing E, still at 6, sorry. And it has gone up 9 units. So it went right 6 units and 9 up. So it's kind of like a roadmap to get you from the origin to any other point. Okay, so nice and easy. Again, that's a question on your assignment, so make sure you can do that. So next, we're going to join some points together. So this is the last question of your assignment. We're going to join, we're going to start plotting points here, and then we're going to connect all 5 of these points together. So we're going to start at 2, 2, so that point's right there. The next point I have is over to negative 2. So it said to join those together, so I'm going to connect them with a straight line. Okay, and then I'm going to negative 2, negative 2, so that point's right here. I'm going to connect these together, and then negative 2 to positive 2. And then back to positive 2, positive 2. Oh, look, I made a square. That's good. Okay, so now that line's done. Sometimes I like to go through and I like to cross these off as I plot the points and connect them. Sometimes when there's long ones or like a big long chain, I like to cross them off so I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to start at negative 2, positive 2. So I already have that point, and I'm connecting it to 0, 4. So 0, I'm not moving left or right, and I'm going up to 4. So I'm connecting those two. And then the next point is 4, 4. So over 4, up 4. And I'm going to connect these two. Not those two. And then I'm going to go to 4 and 0, which is right there. So I'm going to connect those. And you want to connect them in the order that you're doing them. And then I'm going to 2, negative 2. So that point's already there, so that's that. So I did all of that line. And then the last one says connect 2, 2 to 4, 4. So I kind of ruined the surprise, but it's there, and you've drawn a cube. And I will be asking you to do this on your assignment. So that's this lesson, just using your coordinate pairs. You might already have lots of experience with it, so just dive into the assignment. Thanks, and if you have questions, let me know.